And this is just so you have an idea of how I did the garage and the window trimmings here. So all I did was get some half-inch PVC pipe. You'll notice that there's clips here, so you just drill the clips into the wood, and then all you do is slap them in and on and make sure those are level, and then the PVC pipes just stick right in there. And I just zip tied the bullet nodes there, so I just got square bullet nodes. They were the cheapest ones. I think it was $25 for 20 feet of those, and they go every 3 inches. And there's kind of some sag there, but again, I zip tied every few, so I can shift those over, tighten them, and then every, I'd say about 3 feet, I put a clip there. And then I just measured it as such, so that I can use one clip, join up two, real simple. And so that's what I did for all the trim here. All I had to do was put the clips in, and then push the PVC pipe in. And then obviously, it's really easy to remove. Just take them off, store them in the garage. We're all set there. And then that's the end of it, which again, you can cut to any length. So that's why I choose to cut it there. And I put a piece of heat shrink, zip tied it so no water can get in there. And here's the other end. So this is where the data comes in. So you'll see there's this little twist tie here. And this is a waterproof plug. So the cap goes on, there's a little rubber seal. So even if it does get wet, the water doesn't get into the connection. And that just simply sits out there. So that comes from the controller down this line into here. And that's how those lights get the signal it needs to get. And then for the arches, similarly, I just got some PVC pipe. I didn't, one trick I've learned throughout my time is to, if you actually heat up the PVC, you can bend it kind of how you want. This is just it rigid to kind of keep its form there. And all I did was put Velcro around this. These are actually IP68 strips. So not only the strip, but you'll see like this like plastic covering on top of it. In my experience, there's another one like I think IP65 or 67. And those work okay, but they definitely color over time. The strip actually gets a little yellow and makes the lights look a little different, but I definitely always spring for IP68 when you're going for these like strips and using it outdoors. Keeps it real nice. But yeah, there's the Velcro right there all along. And again, all I did was measure. These are 10-foot PVC sections that I married here with a little T-joint, and then I just put that center post there just to keep rigidity for wind and shape. So those are the arches, and yeah, I just take that down. I have rebar stakes going into the ground. They're 4 feet, and they just slide in so they stay in place. And that's how the arches work there. And let me see if I can show you an example of the IP65 here. So over the years, I've definitely learned the differences. So you'll see here's that kind of IP68. Here's that IP65. So it's waterproof. It definitely can stay outside, but you'll notice that again, it's covering the LEDs and the connections, but the big difference is down here. So it's like super glued, or I mean, yeah, kind of keeps it sealed and shut. For this one, I mean, it's okay, but I've noticed that the lights will actually flicker and get upset when it gets a little wet. It's fine, it still works, but definitely not ideal. So that's why most of these now on my tree are the IP68. And then I kept the few that are still working, these IP65s out here. And again, it's kind of hard to see, it's a little dark. But see how the one on the right's a little yellow, where the one in the IP68 kind of plastic casing is holding up its color much better. So anyway, those are the differences between the LED strips there. So one of the biggest upgrades, besides the house, which if you look at my video from 2016, this is a different house. Yes, we moved, but I went ahead and installed a flagpole. Now, a lot of people say, oh, you put a flagpole up there, you love America. That's true. I'm proud to be an American, but the biggest reason actually was for my Christmas tree. So the people had here a artificial turf, so I just cut up a little corner and dug up the ground, dug it about 2.5 feet, 3 feet down, so I could put a little sleeve, and then this post I can actually remove from the ground to take it off. And so I have a little hoist up there that I took off for now. But so what I put up there It's the same tree topper from before, and all I did was put a little PVC 1.5 inch coupler at the top, and then put a 3/4 inch PVC pipe in the middle of that tree adapter that you can kind of see in black, and then put the cap on top so it sits up there nicely. And then I got smarter. I actually have some ratchet tie downs. The tree adapter has some hooks, and then you can kind of see it's camouflaged, but had to go a little bit longer, so I had to use some regular pull tie downs there, and it keeps it nice and taut. So if the wind bothers it, it's no big deal, but it keeps it nice and straight there. So that's a huge upgrade. And of course the pole is steel, aluminum poles. Again, with the wind and rain show, definitely not a good fit. So I had to go a little bit more beefy and get some steel poles. And then you'll notice that the base here, to kind of give it that circle shape, in the previous iteration I kind of just had a piece of plywood and put the eyelids and zip ties to kind of give the tree its shape. But this time I decided to actually give it the PVC shape, so just made a semicircle, and then the controller sits right back there. The controller actually holds the bottom of the PVC, which is really nice. And then this was one of my other iterations. This is just a 1/2 inch steel pipe that I bought at a Home Depot. And actually it's the perfect weight to kind of keep the front of the tree weighted, because the tension would actually make the tree tilt up. This actually keeps the weight just enough down. As you can see, I bought a pier anchor there and had a ratchet tie down to try to keep it down, but this actually provided just enough weight to keep it weighted so the tree stays nice and straight and keeps its shape to have it be that perfect kind of tree looking shape. And then the other kind of upgrade I did is you'll see that there's like these ball kind of like ball ties, so like one end's hooped and the other end is a ball, just to kind of give it a little bit of a spring tension there. And then again, having this steel post sit on the PVC pipe keeps it that nice tight look, and again gives a little give so that it bounces a little bit if it gets a little windy, but no big deal. So I'm really pleased with how this turned out. So good upgrade there, thank you. Ingenuity, and again YouTube for all the inspiration and thought there. They get that going. And so yeah, and so it's a little bit wet here in Southern California, but I have no issue with all this getting wet. They're all rated for outdoor use. All my connections have these solderless little sleeves that I'm sure you guys have seen if you're watching this channel, but I can show them to you. So you just kind of put the two ends of the wire, and then all you have to do is use a heat gun to melt the solder at the point. There's a little bead that kind of melts it together, and then two rubber inserts that melt to make it a waterproof connection. I just put heat shrink on there for good measure to make sure it's super good to go. But yeah, that's how I got all those connections on my new strips, which again, those same waterproof connections, those twisties, go into the controller and then go up in there. Keep it all waterproof. I'll do a little diagram, but just to kind of give you an idea. So in my computer room upstairs, I set the sequence, get all the timings right, and get all the model, basically the preview looks good. And then once I have the file sent, I send it to my Raspberry Pi. That's over here. Then my Raspberry Pi, which is on my network, basically what you tell it, okay, my controllers are this, is that, and the other. And then it tells the controllers, okay, here's your file, do what you need to do. Which, of course, that's wireless, by the way. That's the cool part about this Raspberry Pi. You could put it anywhere. So people are saying, well, why can't I put it outside? You could if you wanted to. But the cool thing about the Raspberry Pi is that it controls your sound. So I happen to have waterproof speakers outside for my show. But that's why a lot of people just opt to do that FM kind of piratey transmitting thing. But no, I chose to do the speaker there. So that I have an audio cable going from the Raspberry Pi to the amp, and it was just the shortest run to put my amp here, which, remember, all those cables that come out of my garage come out right there. So easy short run there. I'd say it's about 50 feet to the speakers and to the tree. So anyway, the Raspberry Pi is wireless, so I can, when I'm on my Wi-Fi, I can get into it, and then the Raspberry Pi sends it wirelessly to the other controllers. Now, of course, you could wire it. You could also put that on an Ethernet connection, but I haven't noticed, like, the Raspberry Pi isn't doing any heavy lifting except for just sending the files. And the files, again, they're not ginormous. So when you think about like light data is like is it on or off? And then what color of the RGB? So it's when you're thinking, yes, there's a lot of different numbers that go into like, well, this strand has 50 lights, and this particular light has an RGB code. We'll just say 200, 100, 300. No, that's not even possible. 200, 100, 150, right? And that's at that second, and this half second it changes, right? Now, to our human mind, wow, it's a lot of information to process. But for a computer, again, those silly numbers, it can, again, if you have even a half-decent computer, it can crunch those like no problem. So the Raspberry Pi is really cool because it can crunch those numbers really quickly, even as a Raspberry Pi. So, yeah, I mean, you could dedicate a whole computer to that section if you wanted to, but the Raspberry Pi, in my experience, I've had a couple of quirks here and there, but nothing that a little update on the software doesn't fix. It's very lightweight, does the job, does it perfectly. So, for the Raspberry Pi, it's in my wireless network. It says, hey, controllers, here you go, here's your information, which, of course, wirelessly sends it to this Google Wi-Fi point connected via Ethernet to this switch, and this switch sends all that data to the controllers out there. Which again, they recommend no more than 300 feet from a switch because electrical signals over copper degrade over 300 feet. But again, for my purposes, that switch here to the tree is about 100 feet. The switch to my arches, we'll call it 100 feet. And then that switch to here in the garage is about, we'll call it 25 feet. All right, here I am inside my garage. So the shell's still going on there. Looking good. All right, so here's one of the controllers close up, just so you can see it. So it says holidaycoro.com. That's where I did, how much hours of research. And they just seem to have the most clear, consistent advice and made me feel good about my purchases, as well as, of course, they have great warranties and ways that you can get help and troubleshooting, their knowledge base. So great website. You'll see a link in my description. So here's the controller. Again, nothing fancy. So the big part of it is the power supply. I chose to go 12 volt. So there's two big voltages for LED lights, 5 volt and 12 volt. So for shorter applications, 5 volts seems to be the way to go. As I was researching and reading, if you go much longer than 16 feet or 5 meters, there's a considerable voltage drop between each line. So I didn't want to have to deal with it, especially because from the controller, so here I have it on my garage, it's only, like 5 feet, but to the very furthest window, it was 30 feet. So I didn't want there to be any voltage drop or data loss going from here all the way 30 feet to my farthest window. So that's why I went with 12 volt, and it works great. No problems there. So anyway, back to the controller. So there's the power supply, and then this is the literal controller that you guys see right here. There's a screen running, and it kind of just flashes information and gives the IP address of my local network where this controller is, which is important. And then you see my network cable going in, that there's data activity. The red light means it's on. The green means it's receiving internet activity. And then, of course, there are all the pigtails plugged in for channel 1, 2, 3, 4. That's for a generic kind of like dumb controller, regular DMX network 512. But these are for smart pixels here. And all the pigtails run, well, in this case, over here outside my door to get to the different elements of my display outside. And so I'll kind of walk you through what could be on this screen here. There's actually an online interface that's a little easier to work with, but there's definitely buttons here if you wanted to program the static IP address or set how many pixels are going into each channel here. You could do that right from the screen, but I'll show you how easy it is. And this is just simply, as long as you get the power cable comes out here. I just have it plugged in right here. And then just getting the network cable in here, which I plug in here. And then I have the network cable running, I have some storage here in my garage. And this is where I happen to have, I use Google Wi-Fi. So I put a Wi-Fi point out here, which is hooked up from the back here, which feeds this network switch. As you can see, I have all my different elements here. So the black one was that controller that we just saw. The orange one's for my big tree, and the green one, as we talked about earlier, goes to my arches. So they all have to be plugged into the network somehow. So the easiest way for me was to just plug it into a generic network switch, 20, 25 bucks you find on Amazon. Because these controllers need to have a wired connection. Like I said, there probably could be a wireless connection. You can buy an adapter, but this is just easy for me, no big deal. So that is the network setup and the controller. So for my controller upstairs, where I do all the sequencing and all the hard computer work, goes to the Raspberry Pi, which you can see that red light right there. That's it working. So the Raspberry Pi gets all the sequence files and the music files. And again, that's why it's right next to my amp, which sends the music outside. But from the Raspberry Pi then sends all the data wirelessly, which again does a great job, to my network switch, which has all the controllers hooked up to it right now. The orange one is the tree, the black one is the trim of my house, and then the green one are the arches. And so all the controllers get that data, and then obviously go to the music, turn it off when it needs to go. There's one of my controllers there. And so yeah, I hope you guys got a good inside look of my light display.